From the Times and the Sunday Times, this is The Story. I'm Manveen Rana.
We're on a path now right up in the hills on the island, and the view is just extraordinary. I mean, it is like some all overgrown and green and lush, pink flowers, like some tumbling Italian palace. With the water, the sea down below.
This little slice of paradise is on the beautiful and relatively unspoilt island of Senra in Albania. And a few weeks ago, the ever-intrepid Richard Assheton, who writes features for the Sunday Times, went exploring.
It really is a Balladian scene of concrete paths overgrown by fern and lampposts long since abandoned. And through it all, a lonely yellow butterfly flitting this way and that.
After decades of being cut off from the rest of the world, this little Eden has recently drawn the attention of an unlikely power couple.
We were on a friend's boat and we stopped for a swim. Effectively, that's how we found it. We swam to the island. We went on a hike, barefoot all the way up to the top, and we were just captivated.
Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner are planning a $5 billion project to transform this Albanian island and a peninsula on the mainland into a huge luxury resort, including a marina that can hold 350 yachts and a water park.
For me, it feels more like a challenge than anything else. The culmination of all of my experience in real estate, all of my travel, a lot of reflection on how I want to live, how I think people increasingly are wanting to live.
Many Albanians would beg to differ. The project has already sparked 40 continuous days of protests, and counting, which could trigger a political revolution, as Albanians take to the streets chanting that their country is not for sale, and calling on their Prime Minister to resign.
What a crazy Prime Minister! Yeah, in all of his interviews, he has said this: Albania doesn't belong to Albania, but to God and to tourists. We accept it, we want tourists, it's not this problem, but the fact is that we want Albania to stay Albania.
So why has this project from the Kushners caused such a backlash in Albania? Is this a demonstration of anti-Trump anger, or is it about something bigger? The story today: on the Albanian island Ivanka Trump wants to buy. Richard, you've just come back from a trip to a beautiful little island in Albania. Not the sort of place you would normally associate with Jared and Ivanka Kushner. How did it pop up on their radar?
They were on holiday with Lord Rothschild, their friend, in Corfu in 2021, and they sailed across on his boat, on his yacht, across the Strait of Corfu to Albania and spent a few days there. And they were introduced to the Prime Minister of Albania, Edi Rama, and also a local historian, a guy called Auron Tare, who took them on a visit to this island, Senra, which sits about a half-an-hour boat ride from the coast of Albania. And they basically fell in love with the place. As Ivanka said on a recent podcast interview, they swam in the water, they climbed up onto the island. They walked barefoot, as she put it, up to the top of a hill on the island. And they decided, not quite then, but in the months and year afterwards, that they wanted to build hotels on it.
You know, it's not even a business for me, despite the scale of it. We not only the island, but we have 5 miles of beachfront directly across from the island, this beautiful peninsula with a lagoon on one side, the ocean on the other, beautiful white sand beaches.
In the way that she talked about it, almost sounded like they discovered it while swimming, this perfect little unspoilt island. You've been there. You sort of tried to find the exact path they'd followed. What was that like?
Fascinating.
We're up at the top now and we're beginning to understand Ivanka Trump's thinking.
We tried to find the same path that they followed.
Wildflowers, fig trees, fir trees, and a view right over the Adriatic back towards Albania. Birds flying around. You can see how someone discovering these old military housing blocks for the first time might land on the idea of building a hotel.
What Ivanka didn't mention in her interview was that this is a militarized island. It was during Albania's long communist era, it was a submarine base. And so you have these abandoned barracks, concrete shells of buildings all over the place. And there's a concrete path that you can take walking up into the hills. It's incredibly green. I don't know if there are any J.G. Ballard fans listening, but it feels like something from one of his novels, this sort of abandoned world where nature has rebounded after the retreat of man. And I could absolutely see why they saw this place, or found, as Ivanka said, this place, and thought this would make a really nice resort.
But not completely unspoilt, as you say. There are still the remnants of a military infrastructure, which is slightly unusual for an unspoilt paradise. You've looked into it and you've spoken to a lot of people close to the Kushners and the developers. What exactly are they planning for this island?
Yeah, so we have established that plans for the resort that they are in the early stages, I think it's fair to say, of developing include a super yacht marina for 350 yachts, concert venues, a casino, an equestrian centre, a yacht club, a water park, wellness centre, lagoon gardens that will spread over the equivalent of 14 football pitches. And we've established that Ivanka herself is working on some of the designs for the resort. So they're planning to build this resort on the island, but also on a mainland wetland across the water. And that is where some preliminary construction has begun. In April, trucks were seen going into this wetland area. A barbed wire fence has gone up and then come down. And the plans on this wetland area, the plans that we have established the authenticity of, suggest 600 townhouses, 520 villas, 1,400 apartments, 800 hotel rooms, beach clubs along 4 kilometers of beachfront, a golf course, a wellness center, shops, restaurants. I can go on. It is basically a city, a tourist city and a luxury tourist city.
I mean, it sounds extraordinary, but it also sounds expensive. I mean, do we have a rough idea of how much this will cost and where is that money coming from?
Sources close to the Kushners tell us that it is a roughly $5 billion investment from not just the Kushners, who we understand are putting their own money into this, but also to Syrian-born Qatari real estate tycoons, 2 brothers, the Al-Kayats, and also a real estate professional who is close to Jared Kushner, a guy called Asher Abasera. So there's a group of international investors involved. But yeah, it is big money. And the fact that it's drawing in figures like the Al-Kayats show that this is a serious investment. It is thought to be the biggest investment of its kind that Albania has seen. And it seems that Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump are putting their own money into that investment.
Wow. To understand why this particular spot is, why it's so unspoiled, why it's so pristine and beautiful, and also, as we'll come on to, why this whole project is becoming quite controversial, I suppose we really need to understand a bit more about Albania. So just remind us a little bit about its recent history.
Albania was presided over by one of the most repressive communist regimes there were. A dictator called Enver Hoxha ruled the country for decades. And having fallen out with the Soviets, with the Chinese, with the Yugoslavians next door, he basically set the country on a path of isolation from the rest of the world. He locked up his political enemies in mountain prisons. Many children were born and grew up in labor camps. He closed the economy to outside influences. Hundreds, if not thousands, of Albanians tried to flee to pastures new by swimming across the Adriatic and the Ionian Sea to Corfu.
Wow.
And Albania became known as the North Korea of Europe. It's as simple as that. The country he left and the country that stood on the fall of communism in 1990 was one of the poorest, if not the poorest in Europe, was really out of step with even Yugoslavia around it and people living very tough lives.
So as a result of that, brutal, really difficult regime, you do have a situation where, as you say, this is an island that is just opposite Corfu. All the islands around there are so developed and are huge tourist hubs, but this is frozen in time.
Absolutely. You have Greece next door down the coast. You have Italy across the water. You have Croatia that's seen a tourism boom. Albania's kind of seen as the final frontier when it comes to tourism in the Mediterranean. And it has seen a tourism boom more recently. The government says last year 12 million visitors came to Albania, which is a huge increase from about 6 million in 2019. It is one of the fastest growing tourism destinations in the world. And having been known as the North Korea of Europe, it is now known to TikTokers and Instagrammers as either the Maldives of Europe or the Thailand of Europe.
Richard, you mentioned earlier that the huge development project that the Kushners have begun around this island is actually sort of starting on the mainland, on a beach there. What exactly is happening?
Yeah, so there is a several miles long gravel road that's been built, which scythes across the beach and beaches of this wetland. It's an extraordinary place between the sea and lagoon. I went there with an activist, the local activist, a guy called Aulon Harazai, who was actually a civil engineer until a few months ago. He worked in the tourism industry. He helped build lots of these resorts that have gone up along the coast. But then he became disillusioned with what he was doing, with what these developments were doing to the country. He took me around this place and he was saying there is already an environmental impact of what has been built.
Let's say you're a lizard, let's say you're a frog, let's say you're a small turtle. So just by paving this road, they have already started doing some damage.
He said frogs and rabbits and other wildlife that rely on this place will have had their habitat cut up by the road. I think it's important to say environmental campaigners from across Europe have opposed this project. They say this is one of the last untouched deltas in the Mediterranean. It's a habitat for hundreds of bird species. It's a haven for endangered monk seals, threatened loggerhead turtles. It's basically the kind of place you don't find anywhere else in Europe because of Albania's unique history, because of how it's been left. It will have an inevitable environmental impact on that site. I think that's fair to say. The Kushners, or their representatives, say that that impact will actually be positive. They say
Really? What's their argument?
They say actually nature will be more abundant. One thing is they say the water that is in this lagoon is polluted by Vjora, the city next door, and they're going to do a lot of work to clean up that water. They say their designs are so sensitive to the environment that wildlife, flora and fauna will be more abundant. That's how they put it to me, than it is now, which is pretty incredible to think, given, what environmental groups tell us. They are currently carrying out an environmental survey of the area, but they are going to dredge probably millions of cubic meters of water, dredge probably millions of cubic meters of land, as I say, build massive infrastructure. It's hard to see how it won't have some environmental impact on the area.
And you mentioned earlier that, the construction, the barbed wire went up in April to start building, but then it did come down again. Just talk us through what's been happening.
Yeah, so protesters kind of focused on this site in May after the work started, began protesting. There was one particular protest which turned violent. One protester was dragged away by private security guards and beaten. 3 security guards were arrested. The Albanian government came down pretty hard on that security group, sacked the company, sacked the local head of police in Vjora. The government is very keen to persuade Albanians and foreigners that this project is being done by the book, and that was not a good look.
No, terrible optics.
Terrible optics, but that was really the moment that sparked what has become a nationwide protest movement in the last few weeks in Albania. The video of this protester being dragged away went viral on social media, and this movement that's been really fueled by social media developed. Albania doesn't have much free media, and so Instagram particularly has been the place where this information has spread, and there have been daily, nightly protests in the capital, Tirana, ever since. Tens of thousands of people are turning out in the streets of Tirana. Even as of this weekend, early July, reports that it was the biggest protest since the movement began, tens of thousands of people. And it has morphed into much more than a protest about this particular resort. That was very much the spark that lit the bonfire. But people are protesting against the overall tourism boom, but also against perceived corruption in the government, and not just the government of the Prime Minister, Edi Rama, but the political class generally. They really feel like the political class is working for itself and for foreign investors rather than the Albanian people.
And it's being called the Flamingo Revolution, which I suppose is a nod to the ecological start that the protest, began with. And yet, as you say, it's grown into a nationwide movement.
Yeah, it's amazing. People turn up night after night on the main thoroughfare of Tirana. We're standing on the Pyramid of Tirana, which is a monument in the city centre that you can climb up the steps, looking down onto the main thoroughfare of the city, skyscrapers around and an orange sky. And the thoroughfare is absolutely full of protesters, singing and chanting. As you can hear, it sounds like a football crowd. I think it was striking how peaceful the protests were as well. The one we went to, there were no signs of violence. Protesters have been keen to say how they've been clearing up their litter after the nightly protests, and people made their way home. It was a festival atmosphere rather than a kind of insurrection.
Like, we are proud for people that want to invest in Albania, but not to buy it, you know?
We want our better future to be here in Albania. We love Albania, we love tourists, we want to be clear with this, but it's not about tourists, it's about Albania being sold. Yeah.
Some seriously creative work has come out of this. Quite extraordinary social media content that the protesters have put out, including one memorable meme video showing Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner as Lego characters climbing up the hill into the wilderness of Sazan Island.
Everyone goes swim to the island, barefoot to the top, fell in love with the rock, then they bought the lot, stopped for a swim, that's how they found it, on a whim, Jared and Ivanka, hand in hand, barefoot hike, they wanted the land.
But I think there's a serious point that just as the Albanian tourist boom is driven by social media, this popular movement has been fueled by social media. Albania doesn't have much independent traditional media. And this is how people are finding out about it. Albanians from the diaspora are coming back to the country in order to protest.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Even if it's just to come, lend a hand, be there for a few days. They are really seeing this as a absolutely critical moment in their country's history. The government, of course, will say this is political opposition, and Eddie Rama has said this is foreign influences cooking up this movement. Yeah, he has. Yeah, he's blamed the Iranians. He has really come out swinging. He is a charismatic former basketball player and still an artist, a prize-winning artist, Eddie Rama, a kind of bear of a man, very tall guy, and he speaks perfect English, is fond of giving interviews to foreign media, and he absolutely insists that he will not stand down, that this resort development is going ahead.
We'll not discuss about people, about characters, and about ideological fight with people. These are your fights, you can make them, but this is not my fight. My fight is to bring in Albania foreign direct investment. My fight is to make happen developments that will be absolutely not simply great for Albania, but will be a gift to Europe.
Eddie Rama has made it one of the priorities of his premiership to open up Albania to luxury tourism. He says the country needs luxury tourism like the desert needs water.
Do we have any sense of what the split is between the public in Albania? Do we know, is it the majority who don't support it, who are out protesting and joining the protests, or are a lot of people on Eddie Rama's side thinking this is absolutely necessary for Albania to progress?
It is so hard to say. I mean, you have lots of people who have deep reservations about what's happening. You also have people who are in favor of what's happening. I met one guy, Rana, a retired soldier. He actually lived on Sazan, on the island Ivanka and Kushner want to build on during the communist era.
How many years did you live here? Or you lived here all the time, or you came back and forth?
24 muaj. So he was here 24 months.
24 months?
Yeah.
Did you enjoy it?
You can't enjoy it as a soldier. So. It was a compulsory draft, so 2 years army, regular army.
He was there when it was a military base. He was one of the 2,000 soldiers who lived there, keeping a lookout for Western ships on the horizon. He still likes going back for the peace and quiet. He takes walks there. It is a kind of day tripper destination. The government opened it up to tourism a decade ago. And he says, I think this is great.
We're talking about millions and millions of investment. As Prime Minister of Albania said, it's a chance that should not be missed. And the idea is that Albania lived under communism, isolated, and having an investment from somebody like a very strong family, like the president of the strongest country in the world, would be a privilege for Albania, because it would bring...
The point he's making is we were isolated for so long, we were poor for so long. The idea that the family of the most powerful man in the world, the supposed leader of the free world, would want to invest in Albania is flattering to us. We would be fools to let this opportunity go past us. But then I spoke to his son, who was on a afternoon stroll through Cezanne with him, and he beautifully articulated the concerns, the opposition to what's happening from so many people in Albania as well.
So you're concerned about the impact on the environment, your dad says?
Well, of course, based on the history of the investments in Albania. So if you see the south part of Albania and you see all the investments that they did in the southern part, in Palas, in Durmi, in Himara and all the south of Albania, you will see that they don't care about the nature. You can see all the mountains that were before greenery, and the public beaches now they are private. They built all houses and buildings, and they don't respect nature. I'm pro investments, of course, but we need to respect the nature.
This idea that tourist developments are selling the country to rich foreigners and are destroying Albania's natural heritage. It's tempting to characterize this as a generational thing. I don't think it's as simple as that. Just as I met the son of this retired soldier who was against the Kushner development, his brother was totally in favor, as were his two cousins. But the situation is complicated, right? I mean, we met a man called Albert Shuveli, who said he thinks the Kushner development will destroy the local area where he lives next to the site. Yet he was building a restaurant there, and he has decided to call it Ivanka Seafood.
So Ivanka was passing nearby, and she waved at him when she went to visit Zelensky, most probably.
But you named restaurant Ivanka. They will think you like Ivanka.
Unë mendoj se është një marketing I mirë se kjo, se të ndalen njerëzit I believe it's a good marketing, but the people stop to ask why, and he said and she said hello, why not?
As he put it, it's good marketing. People have stopped to ask why. So there is opportunism where there is popular resentment.
So he clearly thinks it's a selling point.
Yeah, absolutely. We also met one guy who was crabbing in this channel between the sea and the lagoon. Very friendly man, big pot belly, topless man in the afternoon sun. That's the vibe. And he was just a local guy who said, "Look at the beauty around us. We must develop it. We have to develop it." So there are fault lines all over the place, and I think we should resist the temptation to generalize who is in favor and who is against. I think the point is this has really divided Albania and Albanians, including within families.
And why is that? Why has this particular story really struck a chord?
If you listen to Eddie Rama, he will tell you that this is all about Trump, and if there wasn't a Trump connection to this, no one would care. But there are deeper roots to this. I went to Albania last year and did a story on a different tourist development down the coast. Really similar patterns, although it didn't involve foreign billionaire investors, as far as we know anyway. I suspect future historians will look at this as one of the ripple effects of the turbulent age we live in, the impact of social media on popular movements. But I think we shouldn't lose sight of Albania's unique history. When that collides with the boom in luxury tourism that we're seeing, not just in this country, but around the world, I think that's a pretty heady mix. It's very tempting for people to accept the vast sums of money that are being offered as investment. And I think Albania is still trying to decide what kind of country it wants to be.
That was Richard Assheton, features writer for The Sunday Times. You can read his full dispatch from Albania at thetimes.com. This episode was produced by Taryn Siegel. The executive producer was Edward Drummond. Sound design and theme composition were by Mal Assheton. And if you'd like to get in touch with us with any questions or comments about this or any other episode, then do drop us a line to thestory@thetimes.com. Thanks for listening. We'll be back tomorrow.